Hey everyone, thanks for your support in 2024. We have a lot of cool stuff coming in 2025, and here are some of the things you can look forward to as we move into next year. In the lead up to The Mandalorian and Grogu in 2026, we'll be starting a full series rewatch of both The Mandalorian and The Book of Boba Fett on exploring hyperspace lanes beginning in October. You can also expect a rewatch of Andor, and we will have reviews of every episode of Andor and the rest of the Skeleton Crew as those come out. Josie will be returning as we continue to rank every Star Wars thing released ever. Reviews of every episode of every Marvel Disney Plus show, including Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, The Eyes of Wakanda, Wonder Man, Ironheart, Daredevil Born Again, and Marvel Zombies, the day after each episode releases, will be available on Beware of Spoilers. We'll be having special event podcasts on 30-minute reviews for the Academy Awards, our 2024 year in review in early January, ranking all of Phase 5 of the MCU after Fantastic Four First Steps comes out, and our 10th anniversary special. Once we complete our rankings of all the Pokemon games on the backlog files, we'll be moving on to Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy. Over on the YouTube channel, you can join in for playthroughs of Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, Pokemon White, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team, Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, Kingdom Hearts Recoded, Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, Sonic Adventure 2, LEGO Racers 2, LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga, and SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom. Want to keep on top of all the new things we have coming? Subscribe at mwpnews.com, subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/@mwpnews, or subscribe to Beware of Spoilers, 30-minute reviews, exploring hyperspace lanes, and the backlog files on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Again, thank you for your support. Good evening and welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. And let's just get this started. I would be lying if I told you I was not very heavily looking forward to this movie before it came out. We're talking about Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and I'm going to be honest, I'm going to spoil it, but let's be honest, the game that it's based on is what? It came out in 2003, so 21 years old. So, is it really a spoiler at that point? I would contend no. But regardless, here we are. We're going to talk about it. So, basically what we have is, this game, the movie is, it picks up after Sonic 2. Now, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles are all kind of hanging around. And they're part of the family now with, Maddie and Tom, and then the opening is just, oh my god, it opens with, It opens with, Shadow escaping from Prison Island and escaping from the gun facility with the help of Dr. Gerald Robotnik, and there are so many things. It's the fights between, Shadow and Sonic, the early fights, when they're in the streets and they're running after each other, it's like, this is what, it's one of those things where, I'm watching, I'm like, how did they fuck up a Flash movie? And they made this, this is what, all it had to be, and it's great. The whole thing with, they did chicken out of having Maria get shot, which I get. For a PG movie, that'd be a bit much, even if it is a laser gun. But regardless, it's I just absolutely adored everything about this movie. This is hands down, if not, it's gonna be rough, because, okay, let's just talk about what my big problem was with the movie, and I think I'm a little excited right now, so let's try to take it down a notch. So, the third act is probably, the best part of this entire movie. The beginning is very good, the end is very good, the middle is kind of weak, but if not for this kind of great, chemistry between Jim Carrey and himself, it's, the middle's kind of weak. I think Jim Carrey playing both Gerald and Ivo works very well, because it's just Jim Carrey playing off of himself, and that's, it's a joy to watch. The issue becomes, the third act, I think, is really where the whole thing kind of clicks together. You get this giant bombastic fight sequence between Shadow and Sonic when they both, are in their super forms. I seem to recall from the instruction booklet they called Shadow Hyper Shadow, but I'm not entirely sure if that's accurate. But either way, the point is, it's like the two of them are having this, this giant fight, this globe-spanning fight, as they're just beating the shit out of each other all over the planet. Like, it reminded me of Man of Steel a little bit, but, like, not in a derogatory sense, which I know it can sound like when you say that. But, like, that whole fight is great. Then you get the moment where it's like, what was fueling it was Sonic wanted revenge on Shadow for harming Tim, what the fuck, James Marsden. He hurt James Marsden. And, like, that whole thing is kind of what's fueling Sonic, and then Sonic is like, no, because he wouldn't want that, so let me not do that let's not be that to Shadow. And then Shadow, has his epiphany, as we are expecting to do, and, because we've played the game, and he turns. And then they're on the moon, and they've reached this reconciliation, the two of them, and they're like, let's stop the Robotniks from destroying the planet. And it's just the theme from Sonic Adventure 2 hits, and it's like, I've said going in, I'm like, there's gonna be an orchestral version of that theme, and it's gonna hit like crack, and it's like, oh no, they didn't do an orchestral version of the theme, they just fucking played the theme straight out, and it's just, like, the robots look at the one from the game, it's one of those things, like, when I texted someone after, I'm like, if a studio could just figure out how to distill every fucking video game that I love playing as a child into a 2-hour movie that I can go and see every 6 months, I probably wouldn't have to go to therapy for depression. That it's one of those things where it's like, it's just everything about it just kind of lands perfectly. Like the production design around, like, number one, Shadow. Like, you get that moment where Shadow's on the motorcycle with the gun, and it's like, oh, they're committing to that. Even the billboards when they're in Tokyo are the same billboards from the first level of Sonic and from the Shadow level for Radical Highway. It's the same Chow in Space billboard in the background. Like, they go to the Chow Garden, which, okay, that's like it's like a Kitty Croc kind of place, but, like, it's great. They put, when they're on the at the Eclipse Cannon, it's like the room that they're in looks like the one from the fight between Tails and Eggman in Sonic Adventure 2. It's just that it's not dropout floors. It's everything about that. They nailed the look and feel. And I think that's the most important thing for a movie like this, is that you've managed to repackage what it was about the game that worked. And again, I don't understand why it's so hard to do video game adaptations of movies, and or adaptations of video games as movies, rather, or TV shows. Because it's like, we've seen, like, The Last of Us did well, and I think Sonic has been incrementally getting better as these movies go on. Because, like, don't get me wrong, the first Sonic is not bad. I do not think the first Sonic is a bad movie in the slightest. It is a very entertaining movie. It's not perfect. There are times where it doesn't feel like Sonic the Hedgehog. It feels like they're kind of not afraid to go all in, but kind of, like, hesitant to go all in. And they don't go in as deep as they want to. But since then, they've just full-on committed to these are just batshit crazy stories where it's like, this is a hedgehog, in this case from space, who arrived in a meteor, and he is sitting there, and he is, he is the ultimate life form. We have to keep him in a cage, but he becomes best friends with this little girl who gets killed by the military. Like, it's the whole and now he wants revenge on the planet. The whole thing is completely fucking ridiculous, but they sell it so well that you're like, well, fuck, I believe it. Like, let's move on. The post-credits great. I'm surprised it took them this long to introduce Amy. I would have thought they would have introduced Amy sooner, only because I think if you introduce Amy sooner, it gives female audience members something to do. So, if it's like, we're gonna go see this and you have a sister, it's like, well, now they're gonna go see it too. Give them something to look like, and like, that was the thing. I'm watching this. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And we're getting Metal Sonic. And it's like there were so many other little Easter eggs. Like when he goes to jump out the helicopter, it's the same thing from the very beginning of the game of Sonic Adventure 2. When they're jumping down and they're going down to the thing to break their fall, Tails grabs Sonic and Knuckles, and they're in the arrangement from Sonic Heroes. And doing the animation from Sonic Heroes when they're doing that, and then it's like they don't overload you with pop culture references, which is nice, and there are a few here and there. Like toward the end, it's like Ivo and Gerald are having their fight, and I think that was kind of the weakest thing. Like and that's part of my problem with the third act, is that you have two planes of actions. You have Sonic and Shadow doing their thing with this awesome. They're playing the theme from the game. They're fighting the robots from the game. They're gonna stop the spaceship from destroying the Earth. All of this is awesome, and they're doing all of that. And then you go back inside, and it's this ridiculous fight where Gerald Robotnik has turned part of his body into a scorpion, while Ivo has turned part of his body into a mantis, and it's just this ridiculous fight. And I don't know. I could have used Team Sonic there to actually handle it and have them do something there. It's just weird that they're sidelined for that entire end of that movie. And the thing is, too, it's like there's an avenue they could have done something different, but the issue with it is they keep breaking up the action to go back to that. So, that was, the big thing, is that, this whole fight kind of starts, Sonic and Shadow go out, and they, the theme hits, they go out, and then it cuts back to the space colony. And then it cuts back to them, and they restart the theme, and I'm like, great, but, you could have done this a little bit differently. I don't need to see them fighting at all, because that fight ultimately doesn't really amount to anything, besides padding the runtime. Or you could have had, I feel Tails and Knuckles have very little to do in this movie. But also, where I was going with that was in that scene, there's a reference to Green Lantern, where it's he's got the giant fist. He's like, oh, I haven't seen that since 2011's Green Lantern. And I'll count it as an Easter egg. I don't know if this was intentional or not. I mean, guaranteed it wasn't intentional based on what Adam Pauly's most recent movie was before this, which is the 4:30 movie. But Adam Pauly, he has one scene in the movie as Wade, coming off of Knuckles, the show on Paramount Plus that apparently wasn't very good. I didn't watch it. But he has one scene, and he is the guardian of the Master Emerald, and he's up on the roof playing hockey. He's blowing off work on the roof playing hockey, and I'm like, oh, that's cute, because the last movie he was in was directed by Kevin Smith. I don't know if that was intentional or not. Probably not the timeline-wise, but it's just one of those things that's like, oh, okay, well, we'll count it. But yeah, it is. I mean, I know for certain he's going to count it as an Easter egg. But yeah, it is, and he probably had the funniest bit in the entirety of the 4:30 movie, was that bit about, what are they going to do? Do an entire TV show about Boba Fett? This movie is just fantastic. I will say, again, the middle gets a little weak, especially considering that, and I know this is going to be a me issue, and I realize this is more for audiences who haven't played the game 20 years ago, and are now, watching the movie version of it as a, adult. It's retreading all of that. It's like, all right, I don't need to see Shadow become friends with Maria. I don't need to see, because I understand that there probably was a shorter way to do it. But regardless, I think they handled enough of it. And I think the thing is, too, it's to an extent, they could have used the game as a blueprint, because in the game, they don't spend that much time really expositing that relationship. There isn't a ton of cutscenes that are and here is Shadow getting to become friends with Maria. We don't really need to see that. I think we really just need that, the scene of her drawing the rabbit on the tank, and then the two of them outside, and then the escape attempt where she gets blown up. Or she dies in the explosion. She doesn't get blown up. She dies in the explosion. But yeah, I think it's what's it called? That goes a little long in the tooth. There's the entire thing where they're breaking into gun headquarters, I think just goes on just a little too long. But again, this movie, if the biggest issue is that it's the second act is kind of meandering, which is kind of what it is, because it's they're trying to, they introduce Shadow, and they know Shadow's going to be a big part of it. Then later on, they introduce. Then it's like we need to give them something to do while we get them to the Eclipse canon. And that's kind of where the movie kind of falls apart a little bit. It's this idea of, like, we need to find something for them to do. Okay, what are we going to have them do? Okay, well, the Eclipse Cannon needs 2 keys. One key is here. One key is, one key they were given, and then it got taken by Shadow. The other key, now both sides need. The key is in the, is in the, what's it called? Is in gun headquarters. It's an interesting conundrum to put them into. And I think that's kind of why it works, is that you're putting, like, it works a little bit because there's enough there to keep you interested, but again, because Tails and Knuckles have very little to do in the movie, it's one of those things where it's like, I feel that's kind of the weakest part, is they are entirely underdeveloped. And I think that, and it's a shame, because, like, Knuckles is a blast anytime he's on screen, and I love Idris Elba playing Knuckles, and they're starting to make Knuckles more into how he's personified later on in the series, where he is the dumb brute. Like, he's here to punch shit, and he's not the brightest. Like that cartoon they had on Cartoon Network, the Sonic Boom, like, that's kind of how they played him, and it worked very well for his character, especially when playing off of everyone else. And now that he's in this part of wider cast, you can have him play that role better. But the issue is, like, as I'm watching this movie, my big problem becomes, like, I need something for them to do. Like, as we get to the end, and it's now that, like as they're getting toward the end, like, Gerald destroys the control panel to stop the colony from destroying the planet, like, to turn off the cannon. Like, that is that is something that's like a big problem for them as they're trying to stop this thing from happening. The issue becomes, like, why was Tails not solving that problem? I get that you still need to have the moment again from the game of him saying, if I can't take over the world, I might as well save it. Like, it's one of those things where, and the Bio Lizard too. There's a great little callback to the Bio Lizard that's not in the movie proper, but there's a throwback to, like, the 50s monster movies where it's like Attack of the Freak from Outer Space, and it's the Bio Lizard. And I'm like, that's good, because they're not going to do that in this movie. But, like, the idea that, like, it is this, this issue where you don't have him doing anything, and it's like, all they do is save Sonic from dying, but at the same time, nothing they really do up until that point really does anything. Because even so, it's like them getting into gun headquarters. It's like, you didn't really need Tails there for that, because they do it on their own. Like, the Robotniks are getting in at the same time, and you get that hilarious dance sequence. But beyond that, it's like it's kind of a weird thing. Like, Tails should have been the one to do that, or no, that should have been Tails' thing to do. That should have been his, like, okay, I'm like he had that line when he's talking to Stone earlier in the movie, and he's having the conversation with Stone and goes, like, you aren't friends with what's it called? You're not friends with Eggman. He's like, yeah, I'm his best friend, yeah. But, like, the other thing is, he's like, yeah, Sonic's the fast one, he's the muscle, I'm the gadget guy. But we never see the gadget really do anything that wasn't done by someone else at the same time. Like, the gun headquarters break-in should have been Tails getting to really shine, but because we also have the Robotniks at the same time, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Like, he doesn't engineer a solution to any of the problems that they have, because the Robotniks did it too. Besides the holograms. But even so, it's not like I made these things can do that. Like, little things like that. And the thing is too, it's like, there's like 2 points in the movie where Robotnik just outright breaks the fourth wall in really great ways. And both times it's Gerald who does it, where he goes, it's almost like we're 2 characters in a movie being played by the same actor. And he looks directly in the camera, which is, one of those great little, like, little nods. But also, later on, and it feels like when I see that scene, it feels like there's something that they meant to do more of, but when they did test screenings with kids, they didn't get it, so they cut most of it. Is he goes, "Who gave you the authority to give wild exposition to Sonic?" And it's like, again, you're calling out what it is. Like, that would have been a really funny thing to do with Gerald to make him distinct from Ivo, like personality-wise, but also it's like he's been in prison for years, and the way he's been in prison for years, and the thing that he's crazy is he thinks he's in a movie. Like, I think that could have landed a little bit better. But I think that, like, the only thing that holds this movie back, it's still a 5 out of 5. But the only thing that holds this movie back when I do my end-of-year rankings from eclipsing Dune, or eclipsing, challengers, or maybe even Civil War. I got to look at my rankings to see where it falls in. I think it's probably going to end up being a top 5, because I feel like I'm going to say I enjoyed this more than Wicked. But the only thing that keeps it kind of off the top, like being number 1, is you nailed the emotional moments in the third act. You nailed the fan service moments in the third act. You don't nail the pacing of it, or the or just letting the moment breathe, because you're too quick to break up in other directions and go try and do other things. What you had to do was you had to fully commit. Like, you had to fully commit, and if you're gonna do like the full, like, they're using the song from the game, they're fighting the robots from the game, you gotta let that breathe. You gotta give me time to really, soak that in. And the same goes for, like, the fight between Sonic and Shadow. That's not from the game. The fight between Sonic and Shadow, where they're fighting in their super forms all over the planet. Like, this is a better version of the fight between them at the end of the campaign. And what it is it's just this, they're just going, like, they're just beating the shit out of each other. It's like a giant Dragon Ball Z fight, or, like I said, Man of Steel. And again, the issue is the only thing that this is really missing is just letting these things kind of breathe and speak for themselves, and just kind of, exist in their own moment. But yeah, this is a 5 out of 5. Go see this movie. If you played Sonic Adventure 2 or Sonic Adventure or any of these things at the time when they came out, and you want to, it hits very well. Like, everything about it just kind of goes. And it's like, yeah, the middle's a little bit weak, but you're not there for that long, and then you're right back on the Eclipse cannon. You're ready to go. Like, and there are so many things that are just like, oh, that's from the game. Oh, that's from the game. Oh, look, there's, there's what's it called? What was it? There's the elevator sequence that's in 2 levels, because the levels they just reuse the same assets because the game's cheaply made. Like, the elevator in Prison Island is in what's it called, in the movie. It's little things like that, the little care and attention, and it's like, if they put this level of care and attention into the first one, I think you would have gotten the reference that was cut. There was the famous thing that was cut was that they would have had a joke on the coffee machine that said Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, and it's like, that's cute. They should have kept that in. I don't know why they cut that, but this is just like, everything about this movie just clicks all together. It's the most fun you're gonna have in a movie this month, let alone, and I haven't seen Mufasa yet. I feel like that I can guarantee this is the best movie that I'm going to see in the month of December. That's not something serious, dramatic, or, here for, to win an Oscar or something like that. This is hands down the best, like, franchise family film you can see this month. Just go see this movie. Like, man, like, if there was a way to just watch the end of this, like, I would say the end of this movie hit for me better than the end, like, the third act of Endgame. Like, it's just, if they can just remake, Ruby and Sapphire as a movie, I'll be good. I'll be good. And that's one thing I thought about too when the movie was starting was you get that Sega logo and it's got all of the other games in it because it starts with Sonic and then it shows all the other games, and I'm just like, man, they didn't make any of these movies yet, did they? I know they optioned a bunch of them, but they just haven't gotten around to it yet. And the same goes for it wasn't just them, but it was also it's the same goes for all of the the video game adaptation companies, because Sony has one like that before Uncharted. I think it played before Gran Turismo too, but it's this this one that shows off all the franchises they have, and it's oh shit, that looks really cool. Hopefully we get these movies soon, and we just haven't yet. I think Nintendo had it too, if I remember correctly, before the Super Mario movie. But God, this just hit so well. Go watch Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And one other thing before I wrap up, I think Snow White's being set up for failure, because I sit in this movie theater and I'm watching the trailers that run before it, and you get Lilo and Stitch, you get Captain America: Brave New World, you get Dogman, the Captain Underpants spin-off, you get all of these movies, and you're just oh, cool. Isn't there a live-action Snow White coming out in March? I thought there was, and we just don't have... aren't there 2 trailers for it? Are we just not going to advertise it? Are we going to do Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim, and just not advertise it, and then be see, nobody went to see it, what the fuck? It's, it's good. So go see Sonic 3. Enjoy Sonic 3. Maybe we'll get... They already dated Sonic 4 for 2027, so get ready for that. We're going to get to see Sonic face off against Metal Sonic. And if I remember my Sonic Heroes lore correctly, he was the overarching bad guy in that. So let's see how that plays out. I'm very interested to see how if they adapt that. But we'll wrap up there for today. And until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.